When I turned 52, I learned something I never imagined I would face in my comfortable suburban life. I realized my husband, my partner of almost 3 decades, had quietly stopped loving me. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It didn't come with shouting or broken plates. It came slowly, like a gentle wind that disappears without you noticing. And the morning I understood it, I didn't fall apart. I didn't even cry. I simply stood in my kitchen in our quiet neighborhood, holding a warm mug of coffee, and whispered, "So, this is how love fades."
My name is Lydia Parker. I live in a peaceful suburban town in Virginia, in a house with a white porch swing and tall maple trees lining the street. For years, life here felt like something out of an old family movie. Barbecues in the summer, neighbors walking their dogs, kids riding bikes after school. My husband, Daniel, and I raised 2 children here. Both are grown now. My son lives in Chicago, and my daughter moved to Seattle with her husband. When they left, the house became quiet, too quiet sometimes. But I believed silence was just a part of this stage of life. Daniel and I had been together since we were young. We built everything side by side, our home, our family, our routines. I thought that when our kids left, we'd have more time for each other. Coffee on Sunday mornings, walks around the neighborhood, movie nights, simple things. But the opposite happened. Daniel grew distant, our conversations shrank, our dinners grew shorter. And deep inside, I felt something drifting away.
It started with the little changes. Small, quiet shifts that I didn't pay attention to at first. Daniel began coming home later than usual. He would say, "Long day at the office," and I believed him. Most men his age say the same. But it wasn't the lateness, it was his absence, even when he was physically there. He stopped asking how my day went. He stopped noticing when I got my hair trimmed. Some nights he would eat dinner standing by the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone. One evening I softly asked, "Everything okay, Dan?" He replied, "Just tired." That became his favorite sentence. Around Thanksgiving, our daughter visited and said to me quietly in the kitchen, "Mom, is Dad all right? He seems distant." I brushed it off. "Oh, he's just stressed," I said. But even she noticed something I had been trying to ignore. Then came the subtle misunderstandings. If I suggested watching a movie together, he'd say he had work to finish. If I cooked his favorite soup, he'd say he already ate a late lunch at the office. When I tried asking him if something was bothering him, he'd sigh, a long, heavy sigh that made me feel like my voice was a burden. One rainy afternoon, I brewed 2 cups of coffee and set them on the living room table. The rain sounded soft against the windows, and I thought maybe we could sit and talk. But he stayed upstairs in his study, watching news clips alone. I remember calling out gently, "Dan, coffee's ready." He replied, "Can you leave it there? I'm in the middle of something." I sat alone listening to the rain. The coffee grew cold. And for the first time, I felt the loneliness of being married to someone who was no longer present. More weeks passed. Daniel grew even quieter. And one night, I heard him talking softly on the phone. His voice, tender, patient, was the voice he used to reserve only for me. I didn't catch the words. I didn't want to. I simply closed the bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed, my hands cold. Something was wrong. Not dramatic, not loud, just quietly wrong. And the truth was slowly walking toward me. The morning that changed my life felt ordinary on the surface. The sun rose gently through our bedroom blinds, casting soft lines across the carpet. I made breakfast, just like always. 2 plates, 2 cups of coffee. Daniel didn't come downstairs. He left in a hurry, grabbing only a piece of toast. That afternoon, I was cleaning the living room when I found a folded note under the couch cushion. The handwriting was neat, definitely a woman's. My hands trembled before I even opened it. Inside were only a few simple lines. "Thank you for last night. Talking to you makes everything feel easier. I don't know what I would do without you." It wasn't romantic, it wasn't scandalous, but it wasn't innocent either.
I sat still for a long time, the note resting in my lap. My heart wasn't beating fast. It was slow, painfully slow, as if absorbing the truth it already knew. When Daniel came home, he immediately noticed the note on the table. His eyes widened. "Lydia, you found this?" I nodded. He swallowed hard. "Did you read it?" "Yes." He sat down, but didn't meet my eyes. It's not what you think." For the first time in years, I didn't rush to comfort him. Instead, I said quietly, "Then tell me what it is." He took a long breath. "She's a coworker. She's going through a rough time. We talk sometimes." "And do you talk to me?" I asked softly. Silence. His face said more than his words. I whispered, "Dan, you stopped loving me a long time ago, didn't you?" He rubbed his forehead. "I don't know how to answer that." I replied, "You don't need to." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and began washing a dish that was already clean, just to steady my shaking hands. For days afterward, our house felt like a place 2 strangers shared. We moved around each other quietly. We spoke only when necessary. We slept in the same room, but on different islands of silence. Finally, on a cold Sunday evening, he came into the living room where I sat folding laundry. "Lydia, I need time," he said. "I know," I replied calmly. "I swear I didn't intend for things to drift like this. I know. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, Daniel." He sat beside me, his voice softer. "I don't want to lose you." I looked at him, really looked. The man I married, the man who had shared my life, the man who had slowly moved away from me without realizing it. "Dan," I said quietly, "love can't survive on autopilot. We both let things slip." He lowered his head. That night, I stayed awake thinking, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of our home, our once lively home. By morning, I knew what I needed to do. I packed a small overnight bag, just a few clothes, my journal, a framed photo of my kids when they were little. When Daniel saw the bag, he panicked. "Where are you going?" I said. "To stay with my sister for a while." "You don't have to leave." "I'm not leaving you," I replied gently. "I'm finding myself." "We can work this out," he insisted. I shook my head softly. "Not if we're both empty." He stood there helplessly as I walked to the door. I paused, took a breath, and looked at the quiet neighborhood outside. Cars parked neatly, winter trees bare, a neighbor walking their dog down the street. "Dan," I said, turning back, "I hope you find what your heart has been looking for. I need to find mine." Then I stepped outside, into cold air, but also into clarity. My sister's house was warm and full of family noise, something I didn't realize I missed so much. She hugged me tightly and said, "You're staying as long as you need. No explanations." Her place was smaller than mine, but it had something I'd lost: comfort. The first few nights, I cried quietly into my pillow, not because I'd lost Daniel, but because I'd lost myself somewhere along the years. My sister often sat beside me on the porch with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She said, "You gave 30 years to that marriage. You're allowed to take some time for yourself." So I did. I took morning walks through her neighborhood, wide sidewalks, quiet streets, houses with American flags and wind chimes. The sun felt different on my skin. The air felt lighter. I started cooking again, simple meals for myself. I journaled every evening. I read books I never had time to read. Slowly, very slowly, pieces of myself began returning. A few weeks later, my daughter flew in from Seattle. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I smiled sadly. Some pain is too quiet to notice at first. We talked for hours, something I hadn't done with anyone in years. As days passed, Daniel called a few times. His voice was softer, uncertain. He said once, "I miss you." But I realized he didn't miss me. He missed the version of his life where I took care of everything quietly. Still, I didn't punish him. I didn't shout. Healing doesn't need noise. Then, one evening, Daniel showed up at my sister's house unexpectedly. He looked tired, older, like a man who had been living on regrets instead of sleep. "Lydia," he said from the doorway. "Hi, Dan." He sat down on the couch across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I ended it," he finally said. "Ended what?" I asked. "The connection, the talking, whatever it was. I realized I was giving my time to someone who wasn't my wife." I nodded, waiting. He took a shaky breath, and I realized how invisible you must have felt. "I'm sorry, Lydia. Truly." "Thank you," I said quietly. "Will you come home?" he asked, hope trembling in his voice. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to something far deeper than his words. My own heart. When I opened my eyes, I said, "Dan, I don't know, but if we try again, it won't be the old us. That chapter is gone. We'd have to build something new, something honest." He nodded. "I'll do anything." "We'll take it slow," I said softly. For the first time in years, I felt like we were speaking truthfully, as 2 imperfect humans trying to understand each other. After he left, I sat on the porch under the quiet suburban sky and whispered to myself, "I survived, and I'm growing," and that was enough. At 52, I discovered my husband had stopped loving me the way he once did. But I also discovered something far more important. I had stopped loving myself long before that. What shocked everyone wasn't that I left our home. It was that I walked toward my own healing with calmness, dignity, and quiet courage. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't fight. I didn't lose myself in anger. Instead, I learned that love changes. Sometimes it shrinks. Sometimes it softens. Sometimes it gets lost in the noise of life. But life doesn't end when love changes. Sometimes it begins again. Whether Daniel and I rebuild our marriage or not, one truth remains. Love is not something someone gives you. Love is something you grow within yourself. And for the first time in many years, I am growing again.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.